Hi everyone, I am Ms. Macedo. Welcome to our lesson. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about primary sources. Are you ready? Let's get started. What are primary sources? A primary source is an original object or document, first-hand information. Primary source is material written or produced in the time period that you may be investigating. Primary sources enable the researcher to get as close as possible to what actually happened during a historical event or time period. Let's take a look at examples of primary sources. Diaries and journals are examples of primary sources. An example of a diary. Anne Frank was a teenager during World War II. She kept a diary or journal the years before she died in a concentration camp. Her diary was later published as the Diary of Anne Frank. This is a primary source. Another example of a diary. Sarah Morgan was a young woman during the Civil War. She wrote in her diary or journal what happened to her and her family during the war. This is a primary document because it was first-hand. She wrote it at the time it happened. Sarah Morgan Dawson, A Confederate Girl's Diary. So this is an example of primary source, a diary. Another example of primary source is autobiographies. An autobiography is when you write a story or book about yourself. Example: Nelson Mandela wrote his autobiography about events in his life called Long Walk to Freedom. The autobiography of Nelson Mandela. This is a primary document because he wrote his first-hand experiences. So Nelson Mandela's autobiography is an example of a primary source. Another example of primary source is speeches. Examples of speeches: Martin Luther King Jr., I Have a Dream. And all of the president's inauguration speeches. These are examples of primary sources. Another example of primary sources are historical documents. Historical documents such as Declaration of Independence or the Constitution are primary documents. They were drafted and signed. Other primary sources can be a birth certificate, government records, and census records. Art is another example of a primary source. As you can see here, this painting is an example of a primary source. Letters. A letter is also an example of a primary source. As you can see here in this image of a letter. So if now you write a letter to your friend, this will be a primary source. Or if someone has written a letter to you, if you received a letter from someone, this is also an example of a primary source. Videos. Videos are also examples of primary source. So if you go outside now or inside your house and you create a video on TikTok, for example, that is an example of a primary source. Photographs are also examples of primary source. So if you take your phone now or a camera and you take a picture, this will be a primary source. So today we learned about primary sources. Primary source is material written or produced in the time period that you may be investigating. Now, you are going to demonstrate your learning. It is your time to create your own primary source. And you can do this by drawing something, or you can take a camera or your cell phone and take a picture, and this will be your primary source. You can also record a video or create a video for TikTok or something if you want. As long as you create a video, this will be an example of a primary source. You can also write a letter to someone. You can write a letter to your best friends if you want, and this will be a primary source. Or you can grab a pen and write in your journal or diary, or you can also draw in your journal and your diary, and it will be an example of a primary source. So now I want you to pause this video and create your own primary source. Thanks for watching this video.